Hello, hello. So let's see what's going on over here. It says here, culture is being poisoned by lazy, unoriginal, populist ideas. Oh no. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh dear. In an interview with The Telegraph earlier this week, Matthew Bainton, star of BBC sitcom Ghosts, spoke about how hard it has become to get a green light on original family blockbusters. These days, he told us you can't do anything in that area that doesn't have existing IP. You need to give the financiers a pre-existing brand. You can't say I've written this idea about this kid who's friends with a crazy scientist and hope to make a big film, and that is very sad. Yeah, yeah, I can see that, especially as a writer myself. I can see how that can be very disheartening, especially when you're trying to get into the industry and you're trying to create new, interesting ideas and you're trying to break in. And any original idea these days, they have to have an existing IP. It have to be some kind of a story that's already gained some sort of traction, or a book or something like that, or or you just have to have a lot of connections and be able to, uh, do your own thing. So it is, I can see how how disheartening it can be to kind of get into that sort of thing. And especially if you're like aspiring filmmaker, aspiring writer, movie writer or TV writer, it can be kind of daunting. And I think I think it's just like a new thing nowadays where a lot of companies, they're trying to maintain their IPs or their copyrights or whatever, and they're just trying to they're just trying to create stories out of all these IPs that they have, and they're just trying to make sure that because I think Superman, I mean, Superman is about to be like public domain pretty soon, and I think Superman came out in like what was it? It was like Action Comics, like the first Action Comics. Like I'm not a big comic book reader, but I do go to school for writing, and one of my recent classes was on comic book writing, and it talked about the golden age of comics, and I think it started Action Comics number one, issue one started. It was like back in 1939. It was like Superman was on that. Uh, so and it's about to be public domain pretty soon. The original Mickey just became public domain. It was like so they're just trying to maintain their IPs, and especially with Disney and even so with Sony, and they're just trying to maintain that freaking Spider-Man IP, and they're just coming out with Morbius and all these little known characters and Madam Web and all this stuff just to like just because of the IP. Bateman has confirmed something that I've suspected for a long time. IP, or intellectual property, is the current buzz phrase among commissioners in the creative arts. I've heard it several times. Doctor Who, that's great. That's great IP. Yeah, Doctor Who is a good. I love the show. I used to watch it a lot, but then it just got like even when I first started watching Doctor Who and I was like I really liked it, it was already like it was already very woke where like they were just like the way they just sucked off women in power. It was just crazy. But the ideas, I love interesting ideas and stuff like that. So that I loved Doctor Who. It was, I would say Doctor Who was number one show, was my number one television show for me. That if I was gonna say a show that I loved overall, anything else, I would say it would be Doctor Who because he has everything. It just like it has the drama, it has the science fiction, it has a little bit of fantasy. He has everything, and just like interesting stories being told around it. But nowadays it's done, like it's dead because you get a lot of people, especially going in just from what this guy is saying. You get a lot of people going in, and is you could see the same thing with the new Marvel movies and all this stuff. You get a lot of people going in, and they want to create their own thing. They want to get a chance at telling their own stories, and they get the only work they can get to actually make a movie is freaking IPs, original IPs, big name stuff like freaking, Doctor Strange or Doctor Who or whatever it is, and they try to tell their own original stories in it, and it turns out to be trash because it doesn't follow the comic book characters or the comic book stories, and it just seems very preachy, and you're just like, and it's just a mishmash of things where you're trying to tell a superhero story, but you're also trying to tell your own story, and they don't mash together, and you don't tell a cohesive story, and it's just terrible. It's terrible writing, it's terrible entertainment, and is just killing everyone. And hopefully it's just like just an issue of people just trying to maintain IPs and maintain copyrights and maintain ownerships to certain IPs. And it's going to end pretty soon, and we're going to get interesting stories again, and people are going to tell good stories. Because I like a good story. I mean, it's the reason I was a reader first before I became a writer. And it's the reason why I got into the stories. I mostly read fantasies and I write fantasy, but it, I love a good story, and I want original stories to be told. But the way people are doing things nowadays, it's just not how stories should be written. It shouldn't. It should be an idea first. It starts as an idea, and then you tell a story around that idea to exemplify that idea and make it come across to people. But the part that people are missing nowadays is the translation element. You have to translate your idea and your story to people in a way that they get it, right? And you can't just preach at them. You can't just tell them this is what this is what this means. Like, oh, this is a story of a strong black woman, or this is a story of an indigenous deaf, whatever the hell. You can't just tell them stuff. You have to actually show it through the story. You have to actually immerse their perspective into what you're being told, and you have to translate it in a way that they can actually relate to. So it's just bad storytelling all around. And then you add on this whole IP stuff on top of it. It's not a good time for entertainment right now. That's not to denigrate Doctor Who, which I love, but the cultural agenda now being set by established brands, be they people or things, rather than anything that contains a spark of originality. The arts have always thrived. Indeed, I would argue survived because of new work, but that situation is now endangered and reaching crisis point. Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to also do with new audience, right? There's a whole new generation, and they haven't heard all the old stories, so people feel like they can just grab those old stories, throw a brand new 2024 freaking image on it, and just march it out to this new generation, and they're gonna love it. But it just doesn't work like that. They lose the essence of the original story, and they create something that is a mishmash and just like comical, and it's just not, it's not a good thing. The main culprit, I would argue, is television. As streaming services continue to dominate, program makers have resorted to known entities in order to attract the attention of viewers distracted by the never-ending deluge of content. This year already, we've had Sexy Beasts, I don't know what that is, based on the 2000 film of the same name. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I know that, based on the 2005 film of the same name. And One Day, based on the 2011 film of the same name, which was based on a 2009 novel by David Nichols of the same name. Where are all the bold new dramas that take a punt on a crazy idea? I've heard good things about The Way, a new series devised by James Graham, Michael Sheen, and Adam Curtis. Was it Curtis? Curtis, which imagines a civil uprising in individual Wales. God damn it. Industrial Wales, and will arrive on BBC One in a fortnight, but such commissions are few and far between. Besides, the Way's creators all have clout and a portfolio of acclaimed work. Would the corporations take a punt on lesser-known writers Andrew Davies, uh, Alan Bleasdale, Dennis Porter? They all had to start somewhere, but it seems unlikely that they would find a place in the landscape if they were starting out now. with much continuing drama, such as the BBC's Doctors now disappearing from scheduled TV. There's nowhere for emerging talent to cut their teeth. Yeah, yeah. People don't want to take a stab on new stuff. So yeah, I can see how that can be a hard thing. But I'm not really a TV writer, although I do know how to write for TV and movies. But it just doesn't interest me. I love fantasy. I love actual books and novels. I don't really want to do TV and movies. I might do it in the future as my skill as a writer grows, but for now, it just doesn't interest me. But I can understand as a creator myself how frustrating that can be. But anyways, until next time.